Okay, David Hart here from G4 Guitar. We're going to have a hangout here where we're going to discuss. I'm going to start off with Slava, and you other guys, if you do have any questions or comments to throw in, that's fine. Slava actually contacted me earlier in the week and wanted to talk about student dropouts. He's had a few dropouts, and this is quite common for those of you in, say, maybe your first year of teaching because you're going to have situations that you're not used to where you just don't know how to handle it or you just weren't prepared. Prevention is really the big thing here. And that's where by putting certain things into place, then you're not going to lose students. But if you're losing students, generally our natural reaction is to try and blame some outside force. We try and externalize things because that makes us feel better about ourselves. It's actually quite common that in psychology they talk about it all the time, where people overrate themselves. And a good example which I use is drivers. Most people think they're above average drivers, and I'm talking over 90% of people will tell you they're an above average driver. Most people think they have above average intelligence, and again talking high 80, 90%. Most people think that they're much better looking than average. Again, all these factors of where we rate ourselves pretty highly, but it's impossible. 90% of people can't be above average by the very definition. So what we want to look at, and when we look at these things, is ask what we did or what we could have done differently when a student drops out. How can we change the situation and go back? Because if we don't have any control over that situation. If it was because the student didn't practice, or if the student wasn't turning up to their lessons, or they thought it was too expensive, or they said they didn't have enough time, all these kind of reasons that they use, then if we can't relate it back to us in some way, then we can't change it. We're just a victim, and students will just keep dropping out. And I see this all the time. I talk to teachers. Some teachers have been teaching for 20 years, and they just say comments like, "Kids today, they just don't want to practice," or nobody really wants to put in the time, or the economy's tough, so people can't afford lessons today. So they have all these kind of externalizations, which is why they are where they are, and it's why some people do really well in life, and other people, and I'm talking the majority, actually struggle to ever get past really reaching a point of financial freedom, if you like, which is what we're doing here. So I'm going to, and really, with the G4 members, the thing that the culture that we really have here is that it's all about taking responsibility. It's about saying, okay, I'm not a victim. I'm going to actually look at myself, and I'm going to see how I can change the situation. If a student dropped out, all right, I may have not always been totally responsible. You're never totally responsible, but you do hold a lot of the cards. And so what you want to do and what we want to do is look at case by case. So Slava, I'm going to go to you first, and what I want you to do is, rather than give me all the details of different students, let's just start with the one that you feel is a good case study, and we'll work from there. We'll build from there. If we can get through that one, then we'll go to a second one. So can you just give me an example? Tell me how old they are, how long were they learning, and what were the circumstances?
Actually, I've got three stories, but I will start with the second one. And it was father and a daughter. Father is, I think he was 34 or something like that, and his daughter is 8-year-old. They started about 2 months ago, and were really enthusiastic, and they bought new guitars, so for both of them. And the 5-week introduction was beautiful, great. And 8-year-old girl was really brilliant. She caught everything on the fly, and she had beautiful hands. And then they started group lessons. And at the moment, I didn't have anybody to group that 8-year-old girl, as another 7-year-old was away with her parents for holidays. So she started group lessons, like private lessons. And at the third lesson, I guess, she asked me why we are practicing that all, why we are practicing picking and those scales and so on. I explained it many times to her, and I explained it one more time. And a couple of days later, her father called me and said, "I'm sorry, but she's not going to continue with the lessons." And she also learns the piano, and she decided to learn the piano only. At the same moment, his father, her father, was grouped with another lady of the same age, 32 years old, and that lady was in the group already for a couple of months. And after the third lesson, he also called me and said, "Slava, I'm sorry, I'm very busy at the work. I'm building a new business and so on and so on. So I have to stop my lessons for now, but I will definitely continue maybe in 6 months' time," or something like that. So that's story number one.
All right, good. All right, let's work with that one. Okay, so let's start with the child, because that's kind of two stories in one, even though I know they're connected. But we'll just start with the 8-year-old girl. Now, let me sort of throw it back to you first. Do you feel there was anything you would do differently next time if you had another chance?
Not really. I didn't expect that. I just noticed it at the last lesson. First of all, checking her practice log, I definitely noticed that she didn't practice enough. That was different from what was before. And also she asked me that question, why we starting with those speaking exercises, and why I have to practice them at home and so on.
Okay. So in the intro, she practiced really well. Is that correct?
Yes, she did.
Okay, so there was a point. What week would you say after the intro, because the intro went really well, into when she started to the second stage, which is really the group stage, but she was still on her own. How many weeks into that do you think you saw a decline in her practice?
So it happened after the third week of group lessons.
Right, all right. Think of this like an air crash investigation. We're pulling apart detail by detail. We're going to have a look at the black box and see what happened, and to see if that we could have avoided it and done something differently. Now, so in the first and second week, everything great. She was still doing the practice. Was there kind of a drop in the practice at all at any point in those first 3 weeks?
Not really. Not really.
Okay. Were there any clues at all? Did she indicate? You said she asked several times about the practicing the picking. Is that right? The skills?
No. She asked this question at the third lesson.
At the
third group lesson. And I definitely explain it at every lesson. So we have to practice this and that, after all, to be able to play songs. So I always try to connect it to the songs.
Okay, great. Did you ask her what she was? Do you know what she was expecting? What was her imagination of what the lesson should have been?
Well, we talked about that.
Okay, and what did she say?
But she's just a little girl.
Yeah. Of course. Well, here's the thing. It's not about changing what you are doing as far as the method and what you're teaching. That's the system. The system works. If you follow the system, this is what we're saying, student. If you follow the system, it'll work for you. But what we do need to change is their understanding of the system, their perception of the system, because if they see the system as something that they don't like, that it's not working for them, or they have their own idea, then that's where you have a problem. It's a bit like you trying to convince your partner. I mean, we've all been there. I know I do it with my wife, where I try and tell her, let's go here or go there or do this or do that. It's not that what I'm saying is not a good idea. I know in my mind this is a good idea. You'll really enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy it. But I presented it the wrong way. So I have to go back and rethink how I present it to her, and even the timing of how I present it to her. What mood she's in, and etc. etc. So this is the thing: is that communication is the method is really 5% of your teaching. What the method is for more than anything is you as a teacher, because it saves you having to write out all those materials, to make tons of lesson plans all the time. So many teachers all the time. A guy that I was speaking to recently, he's got 80 students, and he said he's just exhausted from doing lesson plans all the time. And I said, well, that's because every student you're going home and spending an hour a week or more writing out lesson plans for each and every student. And the problem with that is not just the fact that you're exhausted, it's the fact that they're probably not very good, because you don't have enough time to develop a lesson plan for each student. There's just not enough hours in a week. Whereas if you have one lesson plan for all your students, then you can really make that lesson plan fantastic and really develop it. Now, it won't work for everyone, that's okay, but what you do is for those who it does work with, it's going to be much better than anything else that they come across. And that's really what G4 is about, is we've got a lesson plan that works definitely for beginners, and also for many intermediate, even advanced students can use the principles of G4. But the idea is that we're not, writing lesson plan, so you're saving all that time. So where you're really focusing your time is on the execution and the communication with your students. What you want to be doing is, okay, why doesn't this student get what I'm doing? Why don't they understand what I'm trying to say to them? What am I missing? It's the same with you guys. If I say to you, use the G4 method, use the practice logs, or use the checklist. If you don't do that, then I've got to sort of say, well, what is it that I'm not doing? Do I need to write another blog? Do I need to rephrase my emails? Do I need to do a video? Do I need to have a hangout with you? And it's that approach of, I'm going to keep trying everything until I find what works. And that's there's another thing that I'll sort of back reference. There was a case where the guy studied the best salespeople in the US. This guy wrote a whole book on it, and what he wanted to do was find what the best. There was this guy who was an insurance guy who was an amazing salesman, and I think at the time, this is going back 20 years, but at the time he was selling millions of dollars worth of insurance every year, #1 in the country, etc., etc. So what he found through his studies and surveys was the difference between top salespeople was they just had more solutions. They had more ways, and you can look at that in anything. You look at sports people, tennis players. They just have more ways of attacking the ball, more options. And so by having those options and having more ways of actually communicating your message, then you can go through it. So if we're talking about an 8-year-old, I can think, off the top of my head, about half a dozen strategies that I would use with an 8-year-old that one of which will work. Some of them won't work because they don't all work on every 8-year-old. But some of them, and I start from the top of the list, the one that's most likely to work, and then if that doesn't work, then I move to the second one, the third one, the fourth one. But I also tweak it and customize it so that if there's something not quite working, then I know how to sort of twist it. Now the thing is here, I'll give you another analogy, and this comes from, if you've ever read any of Malcolm Gladwell's books, which I recommend you read, they're really good. He's got a book called Blink, which is very famous, and he talks about these people who have been doing something for over 10,000 hours. I don't know if you've heard of that 10,000 hour rule, but if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become a master at it. Now he gave an example of a fireman. And there was this group of guys who went out again in the US, and they were basically went into a house fire, and they were in there, and this guy's like the chief, and suddenly he said to his team, "Get out, everybody out," and they all looked at him like, "Why? Think everything's fine." He said, "No, get out, something's not right," and so they all got out of the house. And what happened is, literally seconds after they got out, the floor collapsed. There was a fire underneath the floor, and he sensed it. He knew something wasn't right. And because of his many years of experience, he was able to just sense this. That he couldn't put his finger on it. He just knew it wasn't right, and he told everybody to get out. Now, this reaction comes from years and years of experience of dealing with fires, going into fires, and so he managed to save his men. This happens all the time. There are pilots, there are people in all sorts of situations who have many years of experience and are able to handle situations and instinctively, and this is the blink idea of it. It happens literally like that. Now, this is something that happened with me through teaching because I taught for so many years. I did thousands of hours of teaching, many students since I was a teenager right through till only a few years ago that I actually stopped teaching. But I still am doing this and still working with you guys. But 30 years of being in it, I was instinctively able to see signs that things weren't going well, that he was a student that was going to drop out. And I can even sense it with you guys, with the network. If somebody new joins the network, I can sense pretty quickly this guy's not going to work out. And this just happened. A guy, I knew he's not going to stick with this because there's something, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And guess what? The next day I get an email saying, look, he's going to put it on hold for now. But I'm able to sort of backtrack and see it. So what we're really trying to do here is become aware, because when you're aware of the science, when you can see the signs of why your 8-year-old student drops out, when it happens suddenly, that's when you're missing the signs. And that's where you need to become more aware of what those early signs are. The practice log is one indication. So if this girl was filling in the practice log spot on right up until, so she left, just to go through this slower, and I want you to also understand this is not a criticism to you at all. The fact that you're here is a full compliment to you, that you're here to learn and you want to know how to improve this. So don't ever think, and this is what sometimes guys can think, okay, because I didn't get this right, therefore I'm a failure. No, the only failure in anything is the failure to learn. So let's just go through this and see if we can find some points and be aware, because nothing is lost here. In the next 8-year-old you get, you'll start to look for the signs that you may have not been aware of this time around, but if we make you aware, then maybe you'll know what to look for the next time. So if I go back to week 3, the practice log hadn't been filled out just that 1 week. Was that where the practice started to drop off?
Yes, just that 1 week.
Okay, great. All right.
I think it was always also connected to her piano lessons. As a week later or 2 weeks later, her father said that she's still learning the piano and she's already learning the 3rd song. And I asked him if she's playing some exercises, some scales or so on. He said, no, she's just learning songs. Right. So that could be probably the reason.
Yeah. And look, piano is easier to learn in the beginning. We know that, and this is understanding that. Here's the thing. Did you have the opportunity to explain that to the father, that piano is actually easier?
Well, I talked to his father. Okay. And I also explained him if she's just learning some melody using, small keyboard, that's one story. If she wants to play the piano, she also has to practice scales, exercises, and so on. Otherwise, she won't be able to develop the technique required to play something more sophisticated.
Exactly. She's not developing the fundamentals. What we have to do, though, because we know that that's what needs to be done. We know that the fastest route to anything is a straight line. And if you're learning songs, you are learning some skills, and that's okay. But what you're often doing is compromising the skills. You're not detailing the skills. You're trying to learn the song at the expense of technique. And what skills do is actually focus you on the technique. If I can learn how to pick properly, I'm starting out on guitar and I get my picking right, then everything gets easier. As I learn songs, everything flows. But if I have a poor technique, which I did in the beginning, and so I know this from experience, I spent 2 years trying to teach myself and I had terrible technique. Then when I went to a teacher, it was almost like starting again. But I spent 6 months correcting my technique and intensely, and then it all got a lot easier. Suddenly I was able to play these songs that I thought were impossible for me to ever play. Suddenly it started happening, and so that's kind of the experience that I had. But I was a teenager, so I was 17 years of age, so a bit older, a bit more mature, able to sort of understand certain concepts. But I have to say that it was my teacher's belief in me and his passion for teaching that kept me there. He's such a passionate guy. and almost like a father figure to me. He was such an inspiration, and this is something that often goes that's really underestimated, if you like, or discounted a lot, is that your connection to the student and how much you inspire them in what they can achieve and what they can do. So often with kids is that we can, if we get too caught up in the kind of adult world of it's all about skill practice, and you've got to do this, and you've got to practice so many hours a week, and etc. etc. This is good. This is important. We want this to happen, but we don't want to just focus on that and kill the inspiration, because it's the inspiration that will keep them going, especially through this first year. To get them, what we want to do is get them to this point where they actually get the intrinsic rewards of learning a musical instrument, where they can actually feel, wow, I can do this. This is what a great feeling. We know that feeling, where you can't do something and then, oh wow, suddenly I can play it. They're kind of the moments. If I think of my own career, I think of these moments where I had these breakthroughs where it goes, wow, I can actually do this now. Fantastic. So what we want to do is keep them on the horse. We want to keep their confidence up and keep them at that point and keep their practice regular. So we're looking for the daily practice, but we're also looking for the inspiration. Now, and there is a balance here. And the problem is some teachers go too far to one extreme or too far to the other. And everything in life is balance. It's like playing guitar. You can be, a technical perfectionist to where you just shred your scales. Everything sounds perfect, but there's no soul in your playing. There's no feel. You just, wow, that's very technical. I could program a computer to do that, but I want some feel. So we've got to have that balance. One of my favourite players was Stevie Ray Vaughan, and technically very proficient. But he never played the same thing twice. Hendrix was the same, never played the same thing twice. It was always different every time. Van Halen, these guys had so much passion in their playing that it didn't matter that they weren't the perfect technical players. And this is we need to do that as teachers as well. We need to have the passion in our teaching, not just the technical, not just getting the students to practice. 7 days a week and doing so many and doing the skills. They have to feel the passion that we have for our teaching, and that we believe in them, and that we want them to come along for the ride. That this, it's like, hey, I'm on this side, dude. This is where we play music, we play guitar. You want to come over here, You really want to be over here. This is where the fun is. But there is a price to pay. The price to pay is practicing, 20, 30 minutes a day, doing the things that I show you to do. The more you do it, the quicker you'll get there. The more you go off track and learn random songs and riffs and whatever, the slower it will be. And I say to students, go for it. Learn songs, learn riffs, do as much as you want, but do the things that I ask you to do as well. That's all I'm asking. All I'm asking is that you put in, at least 20 minutes a day doing the things that I ask you to do, so we can tick the boxes and move forward. Because otherwise, you're just going to hit a brick wall. I can show you adult after adult after adult who over the years have said to me, I've hit a brick wall. I've been playing guitar for 10 years and I've just hit this wall where I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. Even after a couple of years, they say, I've hit this wall. If you want to hit the wall, then don't worry about skills. If you don't want to hit the wall, keep developing your skills, because you'll keep getting better and better. That's the way it is. So, sorry, Slava, coming back to you. Now, with the 8-year-old, what we want to try and do is see if there are any clues at all, because when it sort of comes out of nowhere, that's when we know that we've missed something, because there are always clues. It's unlikely that there wasn't some, even if it was the week before. She might have had 6 good weeks, and then on week 7, that's when she started to lose. So in let's just say week 7, where you still hadn't sort of picked up that there was a problem, what was the conversation around this piano learning? When did you first hear about that she was learning songs with a piano teacher?
Well, about the piano lesson, I just talked to her father, and well, I didn't consider it to be bad, just the way around. I told him that if she's taking piano lessons, that's very good, and that will help her to learn the guitar. And she really was really bright, and always very enthusiastic at the lesson. She was ready to do whatever I asked her to do. And well, I think she was enjoying that. And
Yeah.
then it just all happened, just within 1 week.
Okay. Okay. So in that 1 week, so let's drill down on that 1 week because we'll see what we've got there. When you said that she'd had what 7 good weeks, 7 really good weeks,
Hmm.
um, and then on that eighth lesson, how did the lesson go? Tell me about it. She walks in. Her practice log is how many days had she practiced?
She practiced probably for 2 days only, and not
Okay.
20 minutes a day, like one day 10 minutes, another day 15 minutes, something like that.
Okay. So did so prior to that she was practicing every day or 6 days, 5 days,
5 days at least.
5 days. Okay. All right. And on most days she was practicing the required amount, 20 minutes.
Yes,
Okay. Good.
exactly 20 minutes.
Exactly 20. Okay. Good. Um, Fantastic. And she was making good progress, like from what you were saying.
Yes, 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 she
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
She could things really quick,
Okay.
and she
Good.
had absolutely beautiful left hand. Other students take months to develop that state of the hand.
Okay. Okay. So in that eighth week, because it's what happened between this kind of seventh lesson and the eighth lesson in that week that we really need to narrow down on, and why the father was so quick to pull her out of lessons after just having one bad week. So this is where we need to sort of find out, why did he react so quickly, and did did the father come to that lesson?
Yes, he came to the every lesson of 5 week introduction, and as we started group lessons, he just brought her to the lesson and left somewhere else, and then pick her up. And actually, I'm teaching at the school, so I'm renting premises in the school, and she was going to that school. So straight after the lesson, half an hour after the school lessons finished, she attended the guitar lesson.
Okay, okay, good. So the father wasn't actually in that lesson. He just dropped her off and then picked her up.
No, he
That,
wasn't. But I
okay,
talked to him after the lesson.
okay, great. All right. So during that lesson, had she looked like she was not going to continue at that point, and she indicated to you she wasn't continuing on, or was it till, or did the
Not
father ever
really.
tell you later?
It was absolutely normal lesson as the one before, but uh, all those questions about why we're practicing that, why I have to practice that, and so on,
Yep.
that was the only difference.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. So when you spoke to the father at the end of the lesson, he said at that point we're not continuing, or did he ring you later? What happened?
No, no, he called me a couple of days later.
Okay. All right. And okay. So what was the conversation you had with the father at the end of the lesson?
Well, I told him that she didn't practice enough, and he knew that.
Yeah.
Well, but he didn't tell me anything about stopping the lessons or something like that. So again, I
Okay.
explained that practicing is absolutely required and that he has to help her to organize her time and remind her maybe that she has to practice, for example, on Monday at 5 p.m. exactly, and so on and so on.
Yeah. All right. Let me do this. I'll bring Ben into the conversation. Ben, we're going to do a little bit of role play here. Your Ben's going to Slava, Ben Slava. If you
Thanks,
guys
Tyler.
haven't met,
Hi.
Slava's in Sydney. So what I'm going to get you guys to do is, Ben, you're going to be the father, picking up your daughter at the end of the lesson, and Slava is going to talk to you as he did with the same situation as just happened. So All right, Slava, the lesson's ended. Ben, you get started. Say thank you, Slava, for the
Hold
lesson.
on, what's my story here? What do I mention in this part of the conversation? Am I mentioning the piano lessons? Am I mentioning the or am I letting the next part?
Okay, well, Slava, can you give Ben a bit of a rundown? What should he be talking about? Anything at all?
So, what was that?
Did the father mention anything about the piano lessons to you at that time?
No, 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 nothing.
Okay, all right.
So
So
I have no agenda in this conversation.
no agenda. You're just picking up the daughter, and I want to hear what Slava says to you about the practice. Okay, Slava. So this is role playing. Away you go. So Slava, you tell Ben what you told the father.
How did the lesson go?
Yeah, hi Ben. Look, your daughter didn't practice enough during the last week, and as
Yeah, I
explained to you
know.
before, the practicing is very important to ensure her progress and her ability to play songs. So could you please help your daughter to organize her time and make sure that she's practicing to meet the minimum requirements?
Yeah, well, this week she didn't really seem too enthusiastic about the practice because obviously she's doing her piano practice and her guitar practice, and she just seemed normally she does the guitar sometimes first and the piano sometimes first, but this time she was just straight on the piano. And then I was like, and the guitar practice now, and she was like, don't really, not keen, and I didn't want to push it at the first day, second day, and then she did the third day with the 10 minutes, but she put it away quickly. And the day after, I just wasn't sure if I should push it too much or not. So you're saying I should be pushing it this
Well,
week? Or?
I understand that, but as I explained you before, consistency is very important. So
Yeah.
we have created the daily practice schedule, and it's at the very beginning of your daughter's folder. So try and help her to follow that schedule, as it's very important.
Yeah, I see what you're
Okay,
saying.
great,
Yeah.
great. Cool. Okay, that'll do. That's fine. That gives me an idea. So, Slava, what you're saying is good stuff. Let me say that it's you're saying the right things. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but it won't work with everybody. And that's why what we need to do is take a different approach and try different things. And this is going to reduce your dropout rate. What we want, what parents often want, obviously, are solutions, because maybe the father doesn't really know why his daughter has suddenly lost interest in practicing either. He may or may not. So what you want to do is put things into questions and first of all, what I do is whenever I talk to a parent, especially when the child is there, is I start off with a compliment. I make sure that I don't come in with a negative straight away. So I just say, if it was Ben, for instance, I say, "G'day, Ben. Your daughter. Let's call her Mary. Mary's just a champion. She's doing really well. Since she started, everything's going spot on. This week the practice is down a little bit, which surprised me because we've had such a great run. She's a star student. So I just want to see is everything okay? Was everything okay this week, or did something happen that upset her schedule?" And so you can see that I'm putting it into a question. I'm asking the father, did something happen, something different? Because you can speak to me. You can let me know. I'm here to support you. And that approach, rather than coming in and saying to the parent, look, she didn't practice enough, consistency is really important. It's kind of like the lecture. You're giving me a lecture on what I should be doing, and the father's going, oh, okay, yeah, all right, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So what we want to do is shift it around to where we're actually asking a question, is everything okay? And this is one of the things that I sort of built into my strategy. I wasn't really aware of it, but I sort of learned it, I guess, over the years, was rather than telling students what they were doing wrong, instead turn it into a question and ask, is everything okay? Because I know that normally, and this is the thing, when you normalize something and you say, normally you're a student up at this level, this is where you are, this is the kind of student you are, you're not a student down here, you're one of my star students. Up here is where I'm used to seeing you. This week you were down here with your practice. Is everything okay? And that's when they say to you, oh, you know, I struggle with the practice, I find the skills are boring, or this or that, or whatever. Okay, I understand that. You know, we all go through it. And let's be honest, we all do go through it. We all have periods where this week I'm not really in the mood for practice, not really in the mood for going out and doing flyers this week. You know, it's raining, it's cold, it's windy. You know, whatever your excuses are for not going out and doing it this week, I can assure you that you're going to have those weeks. It's very hard for you to go every week consistently getting out there and doing your flyers. If you are, great. But for most people, it doesn't happen. And your students, it's not going to happen where they're consistently going to practice every single week. But on the weeks that they don't, rather than sort of, you know, giving them a hard time or lecturing them or telling them what they should be doing, because they know what they should be doing. That's the thing, is they do know what they should be doing. Ask them what's going on. Is everything okay? Does that make sense, Slava?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. All right. So try that as a different strategy and see what happens. I think you will find it makes a difference. And that way, you know, even when you see the smallest of signs of something not going according to plan. In other words, they're not progressing, or they're not practicing, or they sort of seem a little bit less motivated than they normally do. Or if they ask you questions like, you know, why do we have to do this skill? Rather than me saying, well, we have to do it because this, this, and this, what I say is I turn the question around, I turn it into a question, and I say to them, why is that? Oh, because it seems really boring, or I'm not very good at it, or it seems hard. But I understand. I really do understand. I know it can feel tough at times, but this is what's going to make you so good. It's because most people don't do it. You know, you're going to be such an amazing guitar player in a year or two from now because you do this stuff. Everyone else doesn't do it. That's the thing. But you're the one who will do it, and that's what's going to make the difference. Are you with me? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Let's go. So you throw it into a question, find out what it is, find out really what the emotional side of it is. Because learning anything, and especially music, is emotional. It's 99% emotional. The reason that she's dropped guitar lessons, I would say, and gone to piano lessons is because the piano teacher is probably not putting, you know, she may not progress. I'll give you an example. My wife learned piano for 8 years. She went to a lovely teacher, and to this day my wife can't even play anything on a piano. I think, you know, maybe a little bit of chopsticks or something. And I said to her, I said, what happened in those 8 years of learning piano? I said, why did you continue to go to this teacher if you weren't learning? And she said, oh, she was a really nice old lady. She used to make, you know, I remember the cinnamon tea she used to make, and she was such a kind lady. Great, but she didn't teach you to play piano. So you were basically paying her, or your parents were paying her, to be a nice lady to you, and that's wonderful. But she wasn't teaching you piano. So, you know, our job is to teach people to play guitar. We don't want to dodge that. We're not just here to make friends and make people love us and think we're great. It's the same with you guys. It's not enough for you guys just to think I'm a great guy. I have to make sure you guys get results. You know, because if in 5 years from now you guys are still in the same position you are today, it's not a good result. I'm not doing my job. So yes, we need to get them to learn. So we don't dodge that. We don't sort of avoid that. And that's where, Slava, you have got it. You don't have a problem in this area. Your students who do stick with you without a problem will progress because you're ticking the right boxes. You're ticking the boxes that get them learning. What you need to do now is work on how to build that connection and build that kind of motivate and get them enthusiastic and believing in you, and believing in what you're saying as far as, you know, to follow through. Does that make sense, Slava?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So even though you've lost these students, then it's only half of the picture, and that's really the point here. Is it's not the whole picture. You've got half of it going right, and once you get this other half right, then you will see not only will students stop dropping out, you will be getting results from the students as well. And what happens to most teachers is they actually go the other way, Slava. What happens is they see the students are dropping out, so then they start compromising. And what they do is they do whatever they can to keep the students. And they say things to the students like, what do you want to learn? You know, whatever it takes. And these are called manipulations. Read Simon Sinek's book. Sinek is spelled S-I-N-E-K. Read his book. What he talks about is, start with why is the name of the book. But what he talks about, which is such a powerful message, is that with your clients, anything, with your products, whatever you're selling, then anything that you do to get them to buy your product that's not really connected with the purpose of the product, that it's not really delivering on the product, is a manipulation. So if I go back to my wife's example with her teacher, the nice lady, she was using her kind of niceness, if you like, to keep her coming each week. And that was a manipulation. And you in your business, you can do manipulations like with guitar teaching. The most common manipulation is giving students the songs that they want to learn without actually teaching them any skills or giving them any structure or expecting them to practice. So you turn up to your lesson and you go, hey, and I was this kind of teacher when I started. I was as guilty as anybody. The student turn up, what do you want to learn? Oh, I want to play, A Whole Lot of Love by Zeppelin. Okay, cool, let's do it. Have you ever learned guitar before? No, it doesn't matter. Let's just do it anyway. And off we'd go and start, and they're struggling on it, and I'd tab it out and they go away, and they come back the next week and they go, I didn't understand the tab and I have no idea what to do, and my fingers couldn't do it. Well, let's try something else. What else do you want to learn? Then when they go on to a different song, how'd you go next week? Did you practice? No, I didn't practice. Oh, not to worry, as long as you're paying the fees, it's all good. That was the attitude, right? That was my attitude. But it just didn't work, and I got frustrated, and the students got frustrated, and they dropped out. And that's how most teachers work, and they will continue to operate that way because they don't realise that the long-term picture. They're only seeing the short-term picture all the time, and I know you guys get this. So my point here is that you are doing the correct thing as far as teaching. You're making sure that practice is compulsory. You're not wavering on that. You're ensuring that you're using the checklist and you're following a system and a method, and so you've got all that in place. What we need to work on now is the motivation and the communication. What I want to do is just to involve the other guys here is ask each of you, and I'll start with you, David. Give me some advice on how you motivate or get students inspired. What's something that you would do?
I've just started a couple of students, so I've asked them, try to build their ultimate song list. But what I did is, because they're relatively young, they're 7 and 8, I asked them about their most favorite movie, okay, which is Despicable Me 2. So I said to the mother, okay, we're going to be learning songs in a few weeks. We'll start on songs in a few weeks. Once we've got some basics down, I'll tab out the song, whatever it is, or basically write it very briefly for them, and then I'll start working on something that they recognise. So I can actually then start playing little motifs from it during the lesson to try and give them a hook. And they'll go, cool, that's what I want to play. And I do that. That's what I started with these two anyway. So these are the first two I have.
Fantastic. That's hugely powerful. You play a little bit of what's that song, Happy, from the movie, I think. Yeah, you play a little bit of that, and what happens? The kids go, oh wow, my teacher's the coolest guy on the planet. And you can play that song, and that's how kids are. You don't have to teach them the song; just play a little bit of it, and that gets them inspired. Yeah. Okay, cool, great, Chris. What's something you would? I know that you're sort of new to this, but have you got any ideas or any ideas from your own experience with teachers?
Well, it seems to me, just from listening, that it seems like you can never let go of your passion for teaching. So, in other words, you have to keep reminding them why it's so exciting to be learning guitar. Like, remind them of the ultimate song list they want to learn. So remember, we're working on arpeggios right now. So what songs have the arpeggios in them? whatever, you know. So you just remind them why they're learning the skill. So you're going to be able to learn this song really soon, and you just keep bringing it up. That type of thing. That's what comes to mind with me.
Fantastic. Yep, absolutely. Keep coming back to the connection between the skills and the songs and where they want to go. Because if they lose sight of that, then that's when you lose them. Yeah, they start to think this is some boring old guy teaching me boring old scales and nothing to do with anything that I'm interested in. I went through an experience with a singing teacher like that and a few different guitar teachers, but the singing teacher, she was an old woman actually, but she was noted as one of the best singing teachers in Sydney, and she charged a fortune, and really exercises that she gave were great, but the lessons had no connection to anything I wanted to sing. She was teaching me to sing opera, and I just wanted to be a rock singer. So because she couldn't relate to me at all, it just didn't go anywhere. I just felt uninspired by her lessons, even though she was a very good teacher technically. But that was years ago. Fantastic. Ben,
right.
What advice would you offer? Yep, go.
Well, mostly what Chris said is what I'm thinking. What David said, I think, is kind of like the next level up from that. So if you're willing to, if you happen to have the information, so for example, their favourite film, and then you have the time to see the tab, fantastic. But the only thing I've not mentioned yet is kind of the level down from what Chris said, which is just when I introduce the skill, I guess it's only for skills-based stuff, but if I introduce the skill, then I'll also kind of just show a more advanced version of it. So maybe I'm introducing arpeggios with the G, B, E, B, so then I'll do a quick tweak to go, and that's what it'll look like when you're being flash and maybe do a tap, and the kids are like, oh my god, sweepy tappy fun.
Yeah. Fantastic. And that's great. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, you've seen those cooking shows where you see somebody come on, like a chef or whatever, and they cook up a meal, whip it up, and Jamie Oliver whips up a 15-minute meal, makes it look all very easy. It's like, wow, how cool. You're seeing how he's putting the ingredients together, so you feel I can do that. It's achievable. So it keeps you going, it keeps you motivated, inspired, even though it's still out of your reach. Just seeing it sort of come together, and that's kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying there, Ben, is that show them the simple version and then show them stepping up through the stages and say, this is what's going to happen, this is where you're going to go. You're going to go from playing this very simple arpeggio to playing, whatever it is you want to play. Pick out an example. I used to use things, the kids are into a few different things today, but I could take a Frozen song, Let It Go, which is, my daughter's favourite song, driving me crazy, but anyway, I can just take a couple of chords and go, we're going to learn these chords. This is in the first junior checklist. We're going to start with very simple chords, but we're going to eventually learn 3 or 4 chords, and this is how they sort of come together, and then say, let it go, and bang, and I was like, that's like, exactly, see, you practice the chords, you'll be able to do it. So I want you to go away and I want you to work on these chords so we can get to the songs. And so you kind of, it's the carrot. You're sort of always putting the carrot out there and going, come on. And that never stops. We're all chasing carrots. That's what we do. Our carrots are just different carrots. It's like, I really want to work on that song because I need to get down and hone in on these particular skills, because every song is just made up of skills. If you can't play a song, it's because there's certain skills in there that you have not yet developed. Whether it be rhythm or scales, or, picking it's not fast enough, whatever. Okay, so Slava, now that we've done that, what can you offer? What's something that you could throw into the group for motivation?
For motivation, basically use the same keys, like connecting skills to well-known songs and to music, and always play something by myself, demonstrating why we're learning scales to be used, for example, in this song or arpeggio in that song. I always demonstrate something during a lesson.
Great, excellent. So keep looking at your students' reactions as well. Look at their faces. Is this exciting them? Talk to parents, about what their kids seem to enjoy and like, and try and keep up with the times. We kind of get locked out because we're not kids, so we're not in that kind of circle. But a good clue is, and who was it? I think David said it. Movies. You know, the kids' movies, the animated movies. As each new animated movie comes out, and there's always a new movie coming out. You know, the Frozen movie, by the way, in Japan, knocked off Titanic as the highest number of people who have seen the movie. It's now the highest gross movie ever in Japan, and probably in a lot of other countries as well. So it shows you the kind of the impact, and there's quite a few songs in that movie. You know, that'll give you can run with that for a year. You know, those songs will still be quite relevant for up to probably a year or 2 years even. Then another movie will come out with new songs. You know, what is it? 10 years ago it was Shrek, and then there were what other movies have come out? There was things like The Croods or whatever, even though that didn't have music. But there's different animation movies that come out generally, or kids movies. You know, now that I've got a 5-year-old daughter, I'm kind of onto them. But prior to that, it was just what my students. Prior to that, that's why I'm sort of missed out that gap in the middle. So the thing is, what you want to do is keep abreast of what is in vogue for those particular age groups. You know, you don't really want to throw Let It Go at teenagers because they're probably not going to be into it. It's probably pretty uncool for them. So you've got to find what is cool for them and what's trendy. Something else I'll add to it, as far as motivation is concerned and connecting with your students, is that we find it a lot harder to let go of people who we feel are like family. Once someone, and I talk about the family circle, and then once you come into the family circle, it becomes very difficult for people to just say, I'm stopping. What happens, and we want to keep them coming. As long as they're practicing, you know, as long as we're getting those things done, we do want to keep them coming. So we really need to do whatever we can. You might call it some kind of manipulation, but really, as long as we're getting them to do the things that they need to do, they're not going to regret it. I mean, I don't know if you know anyone. I've never met anyone who said, look, I really regret learning guitar as a kid. You know, I learned for 10 years and it was the worst thing that ever happened. You know, now I have to, you know, I'm stuck with this skill of playing guitar and it's really a problem. There's probably a couple of people out there who have, you know, guitar addiction and, you know, don't eat or sleep as a result, but generally most people don't regret learning guitar. So getting into the family circle, what this is ask people about their family. Ask people about what's going on at home. I don't mean overstepping the mark, as if you're kind of going to stalk them or something. You just ask them, you know, have you got a dog, got a cat? You got a pet? Yeah, I've got a dog. What's his name? Rufus. Great. You know, how's Rufus? And then when they come in, how's Rufus doing every now and again? You know, just little things like this really get you into you build up that kind of affection and treat each kid as if they're special. Don't just treat them like a number or you know, your income. Look at every kid as special and important, because go back to when you were a kid and how you felt when you went to a teacher and when that teacher made you feel special, or any adult made you feel special. How good did you feel? I remember, you know, on one hand, I remember the teachers who did that for me, who made me feel special. And they're the teachers that I, even to this day, have this kind of, you know, adoration for. That they were the ones who sort of molded me, inspired me, you know, and I knew that they thought of me as special, and they would, you know, when I saw them, they would look me in the eye and go, hey Dave, how's it going? How's your mum? You know, how's the guitar going? Or whatever they knew about me. They always had a bit of background on me, and they knew what I was about. And there was a school teacher that I remember that was like that. My guitar teacher, my drum teacher, and a couple of other people in my life who did those things. So if you can do that for your students, you're very unlikely to lose them, even through the hard times. They're going to hang in there with you, and they're going to want to do it because they see you as someone who's important. They see you as important if you see them as important and special. That's just the way it works. All right. If you want to test this theory out, treat your other half, your girlfriend, your wife, or whoever, as if they're not special for a week, and see what happens. Treat them like a number. You'll soon find out what happens.
It won't take a week.
What's that?
It won't take a week.
No, that's right. In a day it'll happen. Sure. The divorce papers will be on the counter. You'll get the email. Sorry, honey, I've left. So just think of your students that way. Now, the question this raises, which is kind of where I'll sort of end this today, but the question this raises is, how can you do this when you get to 100 students? I can tell you now, rock bands do it all the time. A famous artist can look into a camera or send a tweet, and each of their fans feel like that was for them, that was meant for them. Michael Jackson used to stand up and say, "I love you all," and people would go, "Oh, he's such a nice guy," and so if you start off with these loyal fans in the beginning, as you grow, as your school grows, then that becomes the culture of what you're doing. So really take care of the students that you've got now. Like, really take care of them. Go beyond what you think is reasonable for the money they're paying. Try not to even think of the money. Just think of these people as who are going to be the people, your early adopters. And that's how I think of you guys, is that if I don't look after you, this is going nowhere. So this is why I'm here for you. Whatever you guys need, I'm here, 200% whatever it takes. Because if I don't do it right with you, then it's not going to go beyond this. This is all it will ever be. But as we grow and as new members come in, what happens, and it's the same with your groups, is that the people within your groups start to nurture each other and they start to bond with each other. So it's not so much about you, it's the culture that your school brings to what you do. So a good example are Apple Mac users. Are there any Apple Mac users here? I am. Anyone else here? Apple Mac users?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Chris, excellent. All right. So there's 3 of us here. We probably think pretty highly of Steve Jobs. We probably, when we see another Mac user, we go, cool, that's great. It depends. I'm not saying everyone does, but there's this culture around Mac users. Now, here's the thing: even if you didn't like Steve Jobs, even if he's a complete, arsehole, you just think that guy is. He was to a lot of people, right? He was a pretty nasty guy to some people. I saw an interview with Steve Wozniak last night, actually, where he said, he really, one of the people he admired most, it was Steve Jobs, and he said, I just wish he was more charitable. I just wish he was a nicer guy to people. That was the only thing. Now, the thing is that even though he was like that, we are still loyal Mac fans and Mac users. Very few people are PC fans. You don't hear of people who are PC fans. And so there's so many brands, different brands of PC, etc., etc. But Mac users are much more loyal, and that's really what you're trying to do with your groups. Is you want to start by looking after your core people, and this is what the difference. Even though Jobs was like he was, the people that he was thinking about were you and me, the Mac users. So he treated a lot of his staff pretty badly, which is sad, but he was so concerned about the user experience that he wouldn't tolerate anything that wasn't, up to scratch, up to standard. And so there was a price to pay there, I guess. But that's the thing, is you don't have to do it that way, of course. But if you make sure that you look after your students and make sure the user experience, so to speak, is of a very high standard, then you're going to grow, and you won't have to look after everybody, because they will start to look after themselves. They will spread the word about you. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All good? Yep. So anyone got any questions? Do you want to ask? Anybody? Yes, Ben?
With that family circle thing, I'm still kind of wondering how you get into it, because obviously you can't really come straight out with any questions, but there are some kind of framework questions I'm thinking that you could work with, like, just what have you been doing, things like favourite things. And then you find out that, and then you ask questions that show you've remembered that, and then they'll be like, oh, I'll tell you a bit more if you're interested. And kind of, is there any pattern that you found that you were using, if you think about it, or not really? Just
Yeah.
playing it
Okay.
by ear and
Well,
it worked.
let's do this, Ben. Your family. How many in your family are living at home? Mother, father?
Yeah, my sister moved out now.
Your sister and your nana? You say?
My sister has moved out now.
Okay. All right. Cool. Is your sister older or younger than you?
2 years older.
Okay. And does she play music at all, or anyone else
No,
play?
no, cool.
No. Okay. You're the
My mum
only.
kind of plays piano.
What's that?
My mum kind of plays piano. She knows about 10, 20 songs, and she plays
Okay.
them, but she hasn't learned anything new for years.
Okay. Cool. So, where did you get the inspiration to play guitar? Who inspired you?
I was 6, and I was given a guitar for my birthday, and after I was playing along to anything that was being played, and obviously not actually playing along, just maybe I found the melody, or maybe I was just making noise, but they thought we'll get him some lessons, and I just can't remember really ever not playing guitar, so it was
Okay,
just
cool.
one of the things that I did.
Did your mum or dad, who bought you the guitar?
It was my grandma.
Grandma. Okay.
So as far as I know, there was no plan or anything, it was just, yeah, let's get him a guitar. I've seen a guitar, I'll buy him a guitar. There you go, done. That's the rest of my life sorted out.
Yeah, excellent. And does grandma? Do you play guitar for grandma at all?
Well, I always like it if I'm going to play there. In fact, yeah, they have a garden party every summer, and in a month I'm going to be playing for them. But it's just in a kind of put a strap on, walk around with an acoustic.
Yeah.
They have all their old friends around and have a drink in the garden.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So, what I'm doing here, just so you understand, is I'm getting to know a bit about your family and who you are, and simply by asking that and getting to know you a little bit better, then I know, for instance, Grandma bought you the guitar. Now, if you're not 6 anymore, of course, but if you're still back 6 or 7, I would start involving Grandma in the story. The talks, because Grandma is obviously someone who cares about you learning music. Because the grandma's the one who's bought the guitar, she wants you to do this. So I'll say, have you played some guitar for grandma this week? Did you show what you're learning? And that way, I'm getting into the family circle. I'm starting to talk about it, and if it's your mother bringing you to the lesson, I'd say things like, oh, that was really nice of his grandma to buy him the guitar, and then your mother would give me a bit more of the story, and then I'd start to hear, perhaps your sister's doing ballet, dancing, or something, I don't know, and then every now and again I'll say, how's your sister going with the dancing? Is she practicing? And all going well. But and if your sister comes to the lesson, then I'll say, and you must be Ben's sister, whatever your name is, blah blah blah. How are you? Good. Yeah. Have you, do you like music? Yeah, not too bad. Okay, good. So that's how I do it, and gradually get to know the family, get to know you, and making those connections with the people in the family. And if you do this early, while you don't have a lot of students, you'll really build a solid foundation to your school. You'll have these very loyal students who'll stick with you. And if you, just to sort of cut back to Slava for a minute about his students and talking about like with the father here in his business and so forth, this is something where I would talk to him about his business, like, what's your business? What are you doing? He might say, I'm building houses, or I'm doing this, that, and the other. So look for common ground, look for connections. Oh, okay, yeah, my father was a builder, or my uncle was a builder. What kind of building is it? Yeah, it's in the construction trade. Okay, cool. What, are you building big buildings, or what is it? Just not prying too much, but just trying to look for connections and common ground, and then asking questions about, that they're knowledgeable on, because people like to, if I talk to my wife about this, she'd start boring, I don't want to hear about it. So anyone will listen, I'm like, oh, God, this person will listen to me, great. So I like that person more because they're willing to listen to me, and that's what happens, and so the same with you guys is that when you ask questions to the parents and that about what they're doing, show a bit of interest in them, they appreciate it and they like you more. It's just the way it is. We like people who are interested in us. That's pretty well how it works out. Make sense, Ben? Is that all getting kind of a bit of a intro? Okay, good. All right. Has anyone else got any questions? Happy to answer if you've got any questions before we finish up.
Just one last question.
Yes, Lala, please.
As recently I have 1, 2, 3, almost 4 kids quit the lessons, and I want to contact their parents again. It all happened within the last week, and I want to contact their parents and offer maybe 1 month for free. Should I do that or no? Just to give them a second chance.
Yeah, it's not something that I've ever done. Generally, if a student has decided to leave, it's for whatever reason, it's very hard to get them to come back. It's really about learning from the experience. And I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'll tell you what to do when you get to that point, because it's almost if they've decided not to go on for whatever reason they've given you, they feel that they're committed to that reason, and to change on that, to turn around on that, then it's very difficult, and it's often not about the money. They're not concerned, either they get it for free. It's not the money. It's just that we don't feel that we want to do it anymore. But what you can do is ring them and talk to them, and just for instance, can you give me one example there of why a student left? Just one of those.
Well, I had 2 sisters, one 8 years old, another one 10 years old. And they really enjoyed the lessons, and that's what their mother says that they really enjoy their lessons themselves, but they do not want to practice at home. And before they started the group, she also asked me if they can attend 1 lesson in 2 weeks. So not every week,
yeah,
but 1 lesson in 2 weeks. And I said that this was impossible, as 1 lesson a week, that's the real minimum.
Yeah.
And so they started group lessons, and it was really great group with 4 kids, and lessons were just beautiful. I liked them myself, and then later, yes, I received an email last week in the mail from the mother, and she said they had some sports commitments at school, and they cannot attend lessons at the moment, but probably will be back very soon. Which actually, look, it's not a reason. Not a real reason.
Yeah.
So maybe I just wanted to contact them and offer maybe 2 weeks for free.
Okay. The reason,
put them in a different group or something like that.
Yeah. The reason probably, and again, I wouldn't get concerned about the money, because it's really about the money. What it is that perhaps because the kids aren't practicing, the mother thinks this is a waste of money. To keep coming here every week and the kids aren't doing anything, and she's quite right that it's a waste of money. How old are the kids?
8 and 10.
Okay. So what the mother, what she's really looking for is, how do I get my kids to practice? That's her question. That's what she's paying for, and she doesn't feel.
I talked and discussed this question with her many times.
Okay. So can you tell me what you said to her? What advice did you give to her?
Well, first of all, I advised her to be stronger with her kids.
Okay.
So if they know that there's no compromises, they will practice.
Okay.
That's one point.
Okay. So what happened? Tell me about when you said to be tough with the kids. What happened? Did she do it? Did she go home and say, right, you got to practice?
She just said, "Oh, look, when you have 4 kids, you do not actually have time to look after, each kid and organize their practicing and so on." And she's got 4 kids.
Okay, cool. So what she's saying is that even though she hears you, she's not willing to take your advice because she's got too much to do. So she's too busy.
I also asked her, look, they're going to school. Do they really want to go to school or do homework? And she answered, look, Sarah never does her homework, but she's brilliant at school.
Well, and look, I wouldn't put that past, because school's different, you know, especially at that age. You know, they go to school and they do 6 hours a week at school, or 6 hours a day, sorry, at school. Bring them to guitar lessons every day for 6 hours. I guarantee you they'll be amazing guitar players as well. You know what I'm saying, right? It's a very different thing. The difference for us, and I've used this kind of example many times before. In Australia produced some of the best swimmers in the world, and the reason, and this occurred to me some years ago, is why do we produce such great swimmers? In fact, we are #1 in the world for swimmers. Yes, the US and China and, you know, a couple of other countries produce some great swimmers as well. But every Olympics that Australia goes to, we win almost as many swimming medals as the US, except we have a fraction of the population. We have like 20 million, and America's like 350 million. So based on our population, they say that based on the population, Australia would have won just about every Olympics in the last 40 years if it was based on population per capita. And all of that, most of those medals come from swimming. So why is it that we're so good at swimming? Can anyone answer the question? Why has Australia produced so many good swimmers?
You have more sharks.
More sharks, yes. We've got to get away from the sharks. Good. And it's probably something that you wouldn't know unless you lived in Australia. But in Australia, part of the Australian culture is, #1, everybody learns to swim, right? We have a swimming culture. We're all on the coastline. Unlike many other countries, Australia is one of the few countries in the world where everybody lives on the coastline. Nobody lives away from the coast, except for a handful of people, maybe 1% of the population actually live away from the coast. So we all learn to swim, but then what we also do is we have lots of Olympic-sized pools here. So when you go to a lot of countries, like when I go to Japan, Olympic-sized pools are very rare. All the pools are small pools, like 25-meter pools. And now the third thing is that we have squad swimming, and that's where you come every day. Every afternoon after school. If you think of someone like Ian Thorpe, you know, he basically used to train where I was in Sydney, and after school every day, in the morning as well in his case, but they basically train every day. Now, all the parents have to do is bring them, so the parents aren't actually getting them to do it, and then the coach is the one pushing them up and down the pool. This is why we produce so many great swimmers, is because we have an environment for it. Environment is actually everything for learning, and the better your environment, the better learning. Now, one idea that I've had, which I've thought about, which, you know, you guys may think of to roll out, is actually to have a guitar squad, where every afternoon you have, you know, for an hour and a half, you have a session where, and it can be as many people as you want. You can have 100 people all there together, because they're all just practicing. You know, you don't have to teach them every day. You just have to have them practicing. And that's how the squad swimmers work as well. They all go and swim up and down pools. There's usually, you know, 40 of them or something at a time. So you can bring them all in, have a big room or several rooms, and just go, practice, guys. You know, let's do it. So this is something that I think would work, because the parents, the biggest problem we have that I'm seeing across the board is the parents. The parents don't want to be pushing their kids to do the practice. They don't know how to do it. They're not coached. They're not trained in how to get their kids to practice. So this could be a very real solution and something to think about. But for now, what we have is this solution where they come for half an hour a week, and then the parent has to look after it for the rest of the week. And really, if you don't have the parent commitment there, it's going to be very difficult. So where this mother says she's got 4 kids, etc., I would go back to the prevention idea of going back to the start of, you know, did the mother understand from the very beginning what was involved from her point of view? You know, where's the father? Is he able to do something? You know, someone's got to coach these kids at home. Someone's got to be there to make sure the practice gets done. And you know, I go through it with my daughter, Mia, 5 years old. You know, every second day, I don't want to do guitar. I don't want to do guitar. It's normal. She doesn't, because she doesn't want to do it. She'd rather go and watch TV or play. But but we do it. It's the routine. And the hardest part is when I break the routine, when we miss a night because something happens, and the next night she doesn't want to do it. But if I go every night, each consecutive night, it gets easier by breaking nights. So the answer there is that you've got to work out a timetable with the mother right from day one, and then
Yes.
if
She attended every lessons with her girls.
Sorry, say again.
She attended every lesson with her girls.
Okay.
So I asked her to stay at the lesson at the beginning, and I should say that elder girl, who is 10 years old, was really good, and she practiced on a daily basis and was looking after the younger one. If the younger one started, she always looked after her behavior at the lesson.
Okay.
The elder one.
So,
Yes, so I didn't expect them to quit it, and it also happened like that.
Okay, but the younger one wasn't practicing, is what you're saying?
The younger one didn't practice enough at home.
Okay,
So she practiced maybe for 2-3 days maximum, and then the last week she didn't practice. Her mother said that she didn't practice at all.
Okay, all right. So there was early signs.
Make her to go and practice.
Okay, cool. So it was just the older one that was a surprise, because the older one was practicing. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The elder one was really, really good.
Okay. So the younger one was predictable, because obviously they're not practicing. It's only a matter of time before they quit. But the older one, it was the surprise, and the older one, if she dropped out, and she practiced right up until she dropped out, or were there weeks where she wasn't practicing?
Yes, she practiced on daily basis. She was really good at it.
Okay, so the mother it sounds like she basically almost decided that because one wasn't practicing, there's no point in bringing the other, as if it's not worth it just for one kid. Do you know why she pulled the older one out? Did she say? Because the younger one.
She said that they had some sport commitments, some sport activities at school at the moment, and then probably they'll be back really soon. And what surprises me, also the father of the girl started lessons at the same time, and they bought 3 new guitars from Matis Guitars.
Yeah. Okay. Look,
and the younger girl was very active at the lessons. She wanted to answer any questions, and her progress was not better than the elder one. So she could play everything.
Okay, cool. Well, look, it to me, it's probably just a case of the mother, because did the kids seem like they wanted to stop lessons?
No.
No. Okay.
She said that they really like and they enjoy the lessons and want to attend, but they do not practicing at home enough.
Yeah, I would almost certainly say it's the mother just is she's got too many things happening. She's juggling way too many balls, and she's pulled them out of guitar lessons because she's just figuring, well, it's too much work getting them back and forth from the lessons, and I've got the sports commitments and all these other things, and she just decided to cut back a few things. Maybe she's going through a busy period. Maybe she's having problems with her husband at the moment. Who knows? A million things could be going on that we don't know about causing these things. So what I would do is, this comes back to the family circle, believe it or not. This comes back to making that connection, to building that trust, and to sort of so that they hang in there, that you become the highest priority. Really what you're trying to do is get yourself to the highest priority within their activities, because every kid, every student has a list of priorities, and if you get pushed down the priority list, guess what? You're going to get knocked out. I'll give you a quick example. I had a kid who was learning cello, who'd been playing cello for like 4 years or something, and he was about 10 years of age, and his mum said, look, he can't come on the Thursdays, which was when his group class was, anymore, because he's got his cello practice, his school cello practice has changed to the Thursdays, so we can't do the Thursdays anymore. And I said, well, I really don't have any other day or time for him. So, and he was in that group, and he liked that group. Now, I built up, not just me, but the other kids that he was in the group with, we'd built up a real team kind of feel, and it was almost there were kind of tears on the day that he had to pull out his last lesson, and then the next week the mother said stuff it with can the cello because he just loves this group so much that I couldn't do it to him, and it was breaking my heart. So she basically, guess what? He still kept going on with cello. It's just that at school the teacher, did something else with him. I'm not sure what happened, but he still managed to continue with cello. So guitar was his highest priority. His guitar group was his highest priority. And the more you do that with your students, remember to look at each student, look at what they're doing, look at what's going on in their life behind the scenes, and that will give you the clues to how to bring guitar to a higher level, to a higher priority for them. And that way you'll know you'll lose less students. Again, I can apply the same to you guys. Slava, you had a job last year and you decided to go to guitar full time. And that changing that, stepping up the priority was what made me feel more confident in you because I know that you're focused and dedicated to building your guitar business. And that's really, for all you guys, is I want you to make your business your highest priority because that's where you're going to succeed as well. If it's not a high priority, then you're unlikely to succeed. The teachers who don't succeed in this business are the ones who keep trying to have the job over here, especially the ones who earn good money in a job, their $100,000 a year job, while trying to build a business on the weekends. It's not going to happen. If it does, it's going to be a very, very slow process. Whereas you guys who are fully focused, go out there every day, do the flyers, and you know who you are. If you're doing that and you're attending these sessions and you're learning as much as you can, you're just going to be way ahead of the game in a year or two from now. And that's really from where you are, Slava. I know you dived in and you're keen to learn, but this is the first hangout you've been to. So as you come to more of these hangouts and you get more sort of feedback and you join some of Emma's sessions as well, you will really start to tackle most of these problems. You'll start to open up and see why. Because the thing I always come back to, if one teacher is able to keep students, then it means we all can. It means everybody can do it. So it's like the 4-minute mile. Once one person broke the 4-minute mile, then suddenly, I think 8 people or something in the same year broke. Roger Bannister did it, and then a whole bunch of guys couldn't be done. They usually say couldn't be done. He did it, and then same year, all these people started doing it. Now you've got 14-year-old kids doing it. It's the same as climbing Mount Everest. As soon as the first guy climbed Mount Everest, then there was a bunch of other guys, and now they literally go up in droves every year. This is the thing, is that once it can be done once, we know it can be done. And that's really what I'm about, is saying, look, I did it, it can be done. It's just a matter of really digging in and explaining how it can be done. All right, we've kind of run out of time today, but we've got another session tonight at 9 p.m. Sydney time if you want to make it. Yes, Ben?
Just a question with that, the situation Slava had where he had 2 from the same family, one was practicing, one wasn't. And you said the one who was practicing was progressing really quite fast, so you could see the difference. Would you recommend not pointing that out too strongly, or would you use that as a point to say, look, why don't you practice? Because was it your sister or brother, or because they're doing really well, so you can see how much better, or would that cause too much sibling friction? And obviously, if you're in the family circle, you might know, but if you don't, would you just avoid doing that just in case, or?
Yeah, I look for those kind of problems early. If I see a sibling rivalry situation, when you have one old child and one younger child, brother or sister or whatever, sister, it can present a problem because the older one will generally learn faster. Not always. Sometimes the younger one's keen, so that happens, but the older one generally learns faster. So it makes the younger one feel like inferior.
Successful, yeah.
Yeah, and they lose confidence and they stop practicing. The reason students don't practice, by the way, is because they don't have confidence. It nearly always comes back to confidence. That's what you kind of got to come back to is, and I know my daughter, when she doesn't want to practice, I know she's not feeling confident about it. And she'll say things like, can we do keyboard, or can we do drums, or can we do singing? She'll just want to do something else, not realizing it's all the same. It's just because she's not feeling confident on the guitar at the moment. So, yeah, I would definitely look at probably splitting them. into two different groups, and saying, to the parent that the younger one, this is natural, they learn at a slower pace because they're younger, they're not as strong, they don't have as much control over their dexterity. So let's put them into a different group where they will feel, right. It's the old story. You can be in the wrong place. Your strengths are not play. You just compared to who you're around. So that's what I would do in that situation. But also, if I have them together, I can still work it out, and I still keep pointing out what's important. And I do things like what matters to me, and this is right across the board, is I don't really care how good you are. I care how much you practice, and you both have an equal shot at that. So if you bring in your practice logs and I see what you're doing, I go, fantastic. I don't care if you can play the song or not. That doesn't matter, because I know once you do the practice, those songs will learn themselves. I'm just getting you into the habit of practice. So focus on, and I put this, you've seen it in the literature that I do, and this has been well documented in a lot of research, is that focus on effort, not results. Always focus on the effort they give. And we use this in terms of hiring staff, hire for attitude, not for skills, because skills can be learned. That attitude is something that they bring. So what you're looking for when you're teaching your students is to be focusing on the effort that they make. The student who has been learning for, your beginner student who's really keen, practicing every day, doing all the things that you tell them to do, is putting in the effort. And then you've got the advanced student who learned violin for 5 years, just learns guitar easily, hardly has to practice, puts in no effort. If you keep saying to the violin student, wow, you're amazing, high five, that's great, you're a champion, and then the other student who's trying really hard, you're saying to them, come on, dude, you've got to work harder, you've got to pick up your socks, because this is not enough. The other student's getting ahead. Imagine how they feel, that they're really trying hard. The other student's not even trying at all, but has these skills from doing violin for 3 years. You're just going to kill them. You're going to kill their but they both have an equal shot at the practice. So if you go, all right, the violin player, you're doing 20 minutes a day, the guitar one is doing an hour a day, the beginner, and you go, fantastic, Mr. Violin, come on, dude, you can do more than that, you can. And then that's the kind of what you want, is because the violin player's confidence is probably up anyway, because they can play, they can do it easily, so they've got a high level of confidence. It's the other one who doesn't have that you're working on. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, guys, if you want to send me any emails or questions, please do, and I'll try and incorporate them into up-and-coming Hangouts. Like I said, on again tonight, and you guys are welcome to join again. With most of the Hangouts, a lot of people put their hand up saying they'll be there, but last minute they don't get here, so you'll probably get a spot. But let's see. Well, I've had a couple that have been full, but so far so good. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
I'll see you soon, and if you're not tonight, same time next week.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
In a few hours.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Slava, just hang on one sec.
Yep.
I'll say the other guys are just going to Slava for a sec. Okay.